Hello students, this is Mr. Damiani, and we're going to be looking at video lesson 7.3, which is located on page 369 of your chapter 7 Go Math workbook. And the topic for today's video lesson is going to be writing algebraic expressions. The central question: how do you write an algebraic expression to represent a real situation? So we're going to be taking and looking at some real life type situations, and we are going to be translating them into math language. All right, we're not going to be doing any evaluating or solving. We're simply going to write it in another way. All right, so first we have to understand what an algebraic expression is. So please follow along while I read our key terms for this lesson. An algebraic expression is a mathematical phrase that includes at least one variable. A variable is a letter or symbol that stands for one or more numbers. All right, we've started working with variables when we have done our proportion solving. So let's take a look at some examples here. We have x plus 10, 3 times y, and then 3 times the sum of a and 4. And if you look at that, we have x as a variable, y as a variable, a as a variable. Any letter can represent a variable. We tend to try to stay away from letters that can be confused as numbers, like i's, s's, that type of stuff, z's, those things. All right, so one thing that I want to focus our attention on is this right here, this concept of multiplication. There's a variety of ways to write multiplication in the math world, and the elementary way is the use of that multiplication symbol as an x. However, if we're working with variables and letters, then that multiplication symbol could be confused with an x, which is a very common variable used in the algebra world. So some of the other ways that they're going to be written to show multiplication would be 3y, 3y with parentheses around the y, or 3 dot y. That's going to be the most common, 3y, and that's how you've seen us write it in our proportion solving. If you look at this question here, you'll notice there's a multiplication symbol there next to the parentheses. Well, a very common way of writing this would be like so. All right, taking that multiplication symbol out and putting the 3 next to the parentheses to represent the multiplication. All right. So, just some common ways that you'll see that multiplication written. Let's move on now to the unlock the problem here and follow along. An artist charges $5 for each person in a cartoon drawing. Write an algebraic expression for the cost in dollars for a drawing that includes P people. Now you're going to notice that some of these problems, it's going to be a little bit difficult to decipher what's being kind of brought before us here, what the problem is describing. So you're going to want to read it twice and then circle that important information. An artist charges $5 for each person. So for every person that attends the cartoon drawing, they're paying $5. We want to write an algebraic expression. It includes the variable of p representing the number of people. So write an algebraic expression for the cost. Think, cost for each person. How much does it cost per person? $5. Times, because of that word each up above, each person's paying $5. That is a multiplication relationship. And that's going to be times the number of people that go. And in this case, we want to represent that with the variable p. So we have 5 times p, and we're going to write that as 5p. And that is done. We are not taking it any step further because we do not know how many people. We are simply translating and writing the algebraic expression. Let's get down to the try this problem here. Follow along as I read. On Mondays, a bakery adds 2 extra muffins for free with every muffin order. Write an algebraic expression for the number of muffins customers will receive on Mondays when they order M muffins. All right, so looking at this here, we're going to notice that the bakery is going to add 2 extra muffins on every muffin order. We want to write an algebraic expression that represents the number of muffins customers will receive on Mondays when ordering M muffins. So if I place an order for 5 muffins, I'm going to get 2 free, 7. If I place an order for 1 muffin, I'm going to get 2 free, 3. All right, that's how it's basically going to work out. So muffins ordered is where we will always begin because you have to place the order. And we don't know how many muffins each customer will order, so we're going to use the variable m to represent that number. Then it says they add extra. All right, they're going to add that on. So it's going to be the muffins ordered plus the extra muffins on Mondays, which will be 2. So if we're going to write this down in an algebraic expression, we're going to write that as each customer will receive M plus 2 muffins on Mondays. All right, let's go ahead and turn the page to 370. We are now looking at the top of page 370. And we're going to look at the example and continue working through how to write these expressions. The table at the right shows the number of points that items on a quiz are worth. Write an algebraic expression for the quiz score of a student who gets M multiple choice items and S short answer items correct. All right, so now this one's going to end up being a little more complex than the previous page because we're going to be dealing with 2 variables in this situation. Let's first look at the let's look at the quiz scoring. Multiple choice are worth 2 points. Short answer questions are worth 5 points. All right, so the short answer is worth more than the multiple choice. In order to add these scores up, what you'd essentially do is how many, you'd ask yourself how many multiple choice questions right, then how many short answer question points did you earn, and you're going to add those together to get a total score. All right, so we are looking for an algebraic expression for the quiz score, right? We want that total score, who gets M multiple choice items and S short answer items correct. So first thing I want to do is say, okay, how many points, for the multiple choice items? Well, I know that if I get 2 points for every one right, that's going to be a multiplication relationship. So that's going to be 2 times M. So if I get 5 right, I'm getting 10 points. If I get 10 right, I'm getting 20 points. That's a multiplication relationship represented by 2 times M. Then we are going to add that, okay? We're going to add those multiple choice points to the short answer points. Well, how do we represent that? Well, if I get 5 for every short answer, okay, then that's going to be 5 times that S. And again, I'm not a fan of using S as a variable. All right, you could put an N there if you don't like it as well. So now if we're going to pull that together here, we're going to write this as a total score being 2M plus 5S. All right, and that's how you could calculate that score. All right, again, a little bit more tricky than the other one because we're really combining 2 small expressions into one, the 2M and then the 5S. Let's take a look at example 2 here. Write an algebraic expression for the word expression. All right, so A, 30 more than the product of 4 and X. All right, so now we're going to really have to focus on some operation words like product, quotient, sum, difference. These all mean different things, all right? And product in this case is going to represent some multiplication. So one thing I like to do is I like to write all over these expressions to help try to figure out what it's asking me to do, okay? So here's a strategy. 30 more than the product of 4 and X. Well, this word than tells me that if I'm going to go here to the right, I see the product of 4 and X. So I'm going to write that down. All right, product of 4 and X, I'm going to write that as, well, that's 4X. All right, because product means multiplication. You notice I'm ignoring this. I'm writing it over to the right here. So I circled that word than, and I went to the right, and I wrote this down. Product of 4 and X. Then I'm going to go back to the left here, and I'm going to hit this word more, which tells me to add 30. And there is my simplified expression. All right, so that word than does change up our order. You notice I had the word than circled, and I went to the right first. Then I went back to the left. And when I went to the right, I wrote it down. It's going to be a good pattern to get into, and we can work on that again, a little bit more during class time. Let's look at part B down here. 4 times the sum of x and 30. Now, I don't have this word than, so I'm going to basically write this from left to right as I read it. Okay? I see 4 times represents some multiplication. Sum represents addition, x and 30. Well, I know I have to multiply 4 by the sum of x and 30, which means I actually need to add x and 30. Parentheses. So, start with the sum of x and 30, then find 4 times that. So, we're going to start with the x and the 30. You'll notice down here how that gets put in parentheses because you want to complete that operation first. And based on order of operations, PEMDAS, we always begin with P, which is our parentheses. Now I'm going to drop in that 4 times the sum. So 4 times whatever x is plus 30. Now, I don't know what x is, so I'm not evaluating. Remember, we are translating. We are taking a written expression in words and translating it into an algebraic expression, more of a math language. All right? So, let's go down and look at question 1. When you write an algebraic expression with 2 operations, how can you show which operation to do first? So go ahead and pause the video, try to answer that question, and then compare your answer to mine. All right, go ahead and compare your answer to mine. Any operation that you want done first would require some parentheses around that operation to get it done first. That way we are following the correct order of operations. All right, let's go ahead and turn to page 371. We're going to have you answer a couple of questions on your own and see how we do. All right. So let's have you take a peek at question 1 here. Write an algebraic expression for the product of 6 and p. What operation does the word product indicate? Product means multiply. So if we are multiplying, product of 6 and p would be 6 times p, and we would ideally want to see it written as 6p. All right, so now what I would like you to do is go ahead and pause the video, write your algebraic expression for questions 2 and 3, and remember, the word than goes to the right first, then to the left. See if you can pick up on that for questions 2 and 3 and get that order correct with those expressions. All right, pause it up. Thank you. Go ahead and compare your answers to mine. You'll notice that I wrote on these problems. I circled than, went to the right, wrote the e down. Went back to the left, saw more, put the addition in, and the 11, e plus 11. Go to number 3 here, circle the word than, went to the right, wrote this down. N divided by 5 because of quotient means division. N divided by 5, keeping the order. Then I went back to the left, and I had less, so I wrote minus 9. Parentheses around the quotient of n and 5 because you want to take care of that first. All right, so that's why you see parentheses. But another way to write it is right here as that fraction bar, n over 5 minus 9. And based on order of operations, division happens before subtraction anyway. So you don't technically need parentheses there. However, it's always good to get in the habit. Anytime you see sum, quotient, difference, product, after that word than, put the parentheses around it. All right, and the 2 that I'd like you to complete for your your example in your summary would be question 5 and question 6. Go ahead and get those completed in your composition book as your math examples for your well-written summaries, focusing on your key terms. And don't forget to form a good hot question. All right, we look forward to working with this, in school. So have a great evening, and we will see you in class. Goodbye.